Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rock and Beards podcast. It's not quite episode 30 because it's 29.
It's 29.
That's right. It's your boy HSR, and joining me today.
What's up? I'm Syd.
And Jay is still not back, but given his excitement for the Killers next week, you know he will be. Hi. Today we are going to talk about they're like one of those bands that goes down as being huge and well loved by almost everybody.
People like Foo.
They have a ridiculous name if you don't know the context behind it. They fight Foo together as Foo Fighters. Yeah, we linked the link to Foo fighting rather than explaining it to you because it just seemed wiser. On that note, Concrete and Gold came out yesterday. Today is Saturday, and we are quite excited to be here to talk about it today. Mm-hmm. Syd, why don't you tell us a little bit about... before we get there, if you don't care about anything, hit show more. You can skip over stuff and watch us talk about the particular songs that you care about. And anyway, Syd, when did you encounter the Foo Fighters in your life? How do you feel about these guys before going into this album?
I encountered the Foo Fighters at the tender age of, I think it was 11. It was All My Life.
Okay.
Was on the radio, and then later that same day or month or year, somewhere around that time,
Fair enough.
I watched them perform it live at MTV Video something awards, some kind of award show, and it blew my mind. That was one of the first, I think, as a youngin', first live performances that really affected me, that made me want to be a musician and me want to be an artist and get into the music industry. It's just raw energy coming from Dave Grohl. The way he performed that song and the way he performs in general. And I think a couple years later, I bought myself a copy of The Color and the Shape, which is their second full length, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the one with Monkey Wrench and Everlong, and you know all those songs. My Hero. It's a great album. And since then, they've been fairly present in my music listening day-to-day life, as I'm sure they are in yours and in everybody's, because it's hard to escape them. But
that is true.
They are one of those bands that I think has merited their place in the zeitgeist.
I feel like it's almost universally accepted that the Foo Fighters create excellent music, even by people who don't even necessarily like them per se. And I don't find Dave Grohl to be the most pretentious person about it. I mean, he is a bit of a rock star, but he does it in such a way where you like him more after. Like, you just see him do stuff, and you can't help but enjoy anything he does.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because you go back and you see some of the other things he's done. Like, I mean, obviously, for those of you who don't know, spoiler alert, he was the drummer for Nirvana. He's drummed for Tenacious D. He's drummed for Queens of the Stone Age. So you look at his album credits, and you see just like a bunch of really respectable, not people we don't associate with being pretentious, people we don't associate with being narcissistic or just the pop, the definition of pop icon. He's kind of left of center, even though he's like this big famous name.
Yeah. And he just manages to... It's almost like he accidentally became great, and he never really got the memo that he was supposed to do certain things. So he just kept making the same kind of music, and it just works. And yeah. I mean, for myself, for me, it's also the radio hits. I mean, they have had consistent radio hits since I can remember listening to the radio. Yeah. I mean, maybe a little younger, but I mean, 10 years old and beyond, they're there with whatever, All My Life or whatever came out around then, and always there. And he's got such a distinct voice that he stands out next to everyone else. But then as I got older and I started caring more, I can't say I've ever put on a full Foo Fighters album before, beginning to end. But man, of the plethora of songs I've heard, the dude, he has some of the rawest honesty and passion behind the music that you'll find at any point in his career. I fell out of touch for a while, so for me, I'm basically have no idea about the last 5 years of Foo Fighters. None at all. Haven't looked into it. So for me, this is a bit of I had no idea what to expect coming into this.
I mean, I think you've heard more than you think you have.
Well,
tracks like "Let It Die." I don't remember the singles off Sonic Highways, but I'm sure you've heard them.
for a few years, managed to almost entirely avoid the radio and any kind of thing that if I hadn't really sought it out, I never would have heard it. Until I got Spotify again, my music life had gotten kind of stunted. And honestly,
Big ups for Spotify.
Spotify Pro, $10 a month. It's the best endeavor I've put in. Free ad for them. Do it, man. The time you save, the music you discover. If you're like me,
Sponsor us.
in your late 20s, you all of a sudden feel like you're 19 again, and you're discovering the world with the convenience of plussing and unplussing songs. It's beautiful. Spotify, sponsor us. Anyway, I don't know. You wanna talk about the album now?
Yeah, let's talk about that cover, which is simple.
And it
effective.
fits the name Concrete and Gold, right?
Yeah.
Because it's got this gold emblem of sorts in the middle of a slab.
It's almost like a hip hop album cover.
A little bit.
Yeah, like I could see that, like something like Watch the Throne, or like other examples that escape me now.
No, I see what you mean. It's got that simple... Because I find that the norm of album covers, as we've come to see, is very minimalist this year.
Yeah.
And it's very much in trend. It doesn't have the artist's name anywhere, and the name of the album is almost more implied through the art.
I think it's two F's that are kind of stuck together.
But still,
in a design, and that's FF, like Foo Fighters.
Still, but in terms of, I mean, it's a brand that you can obviously throw in a bunch of stuff and be the logo for your tour and stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not like I feel like there's a lack of overt marketing, right? Like,
Right.
if you looked at this as a thumbnail, you're not gonna go, oh, it just screams Foo Fighters, or like some of the past album covers that are just busy or have a lot of emphasis on the name or whatever. No, this is just, it looks like a slab of concrete and that gold emblem on it.
Yeah, right in the middle, very centered, very, very deliberate. I think that, I mean, they tend to have very minimalist album covers. I mean, the one that's springing to mind right now is Wasting Light. I think it's just a bunch of colored streaks across kind of a blue background.
Right. I don't know that I never really noticed or paid attention before. I mean, album covers, I never cared much until I started reviewing albums. We started talking about it, but I mean, love
it's part of the experience,
effectiveness of the marketing behind that cover. Like,
Yeah.
as a web marketing type, oh boy, is that perfect. It's whoever designed it is freaking great.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that can go right on a t-shirt.
Yeah. What a pleasant experience that we just had here. So apparently this was written after Trump's inauguration, and I feel like it just shows this. It really sets the tone for the album, first of all, which makes it an effective opener at 1:23. So it's kind of intro/short song thing. Pretty cool. It's called T-Shirt, and you're like, come on, when have you ever heard of it? Like, what's gonna come from a song called T-Shirt? And then it comes in, and he's just so, like, kind of nonchalant about things or whatever. He just wants to keep his T-shirt clean or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of keeps it simple. And then it's like Trump gets elected, I guess, in his head. And this gets almost reflected in the music as, like, it kind of flips into, look what we've done. We've kind of deserved this thing as the tone just changes. And it's so elaborate. It goes from almost, like, nothing happening to, like, super elaborate, tons of sounds. And it's a freaking rush. It is quite pleasurable and enjoyable to listen to. That's definitely worth saying about this song.
It's interesting. I didn't get the Trump thing. I got just kind of like a song about a guy who's been famous for a long time now and who's kind of, I guess, perceived as a superstar. But it's just like I'm really just trying to have clean clothes and live my life, just like anybody else. Like that's the impression that I got.
I agree.
From the track.
From the first verse, I agree with the idea, and maybe it's true because I guess it is from Dave Grohl's perspective. I feel like a lot of this album follows a very similar theme, and it does tie into Dave kind of. It's almost like Dave Grohl got woke, to quote the kids these days, and this album is a result of his wokeness.
Because I mean, they've never really shied away from, I guess, controversial topics, but they've never approached them from like a political perspective, if that makes any sense. Like after 9/11, they wrote Times Like These, right? And Times Like These wasn't about attacking the government. It wasn't about condemning any sort of terrorist acts. It wasn't taking a side. It was just, it's times like these you learn to love again. It's times like these you learn to live again.
Yeah, it was about kind of the general state of recovery.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what a lot of this album is too. It's not really about fuck this president or what the hell is going on in the States. It's more like it's more like this is what I'm going through, and these are the times around me.
See,
kind of thing.
I'm gonna disagree with you more as the album goes on. I think at this point it was almost like he was one of those guys who was sitting there being like Hillary's gonna win, 100%. And then it happened, and he woke up the next day, and then this apparently came at the inauguration, and so he heard it, and he realized this is a real thing that's happening, and this was just what came out of him.
Yeah.
And at the time, knowing that he's been dealing with some stuff and blah, 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 you can feel that he in himself has gone through some kind of a transformation, and it's like he started this album with this manifestation of a transformation. Like, it's a tone shift from nonchalance and I don't care
of the transformation.
Inauguration. But for real. It goes from like this almost calm, like nonchalance, like you're describing, into, oh wow, we are now suffering for the consequences of the actions we've allowed to happen. And like that's a serious, like that implies some level of caring, right? And like I don't know, it's a direct response to like the situation. Davey may have said it himself. I like to call him Davey for anyone out there who might be offended. I don't really care. At the end of the day, though, this is one of the most stellar openings I think we've come across this year. I give it a 4.5 on 5. My biggest grievance with this is it goes from like super quiet to freaking loud. And depending on if you're on good headphones or crappy speakers or whatever, it is a huge transition of volume that slaps you in the face. For that reason alone, 0.5 point taken off.
Damn.
Sorry. But in general, it's pretty freaking stellar and worth listening to. I haven't been so excited to get into an album like this for a very long time.
So, coming after Stingy Mingy over here. I really like this opener. It reminded me a little bit of this is gonna be for you metal nerds out there, but for Between the Buried and Me, the opener for the album Colors. Don't remember the names of the tracks. I'm sorry. It's A and B something, and it starts off really psychedelic and really dreamy, and then it gets really heavy really fast. That, I mean, Between the Buried and Me, we're a death metal band, and this is not a death metal band. So, but if you can kind of see the aesthetic, very similar in tone, and the sweet singing that turns into something a lot heavier. And what's really cool is it flows really well into Run. It flows almost seamlessly, which is what an intro should do, but a lot of bands miss that mark, I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say there are definite exceptions, but it should be deliberate and make sense. But
yeah.
No, it makes more sense when it flows into the next track, giving like a sense of continuity, or it creates the tone.
Exactly. I give this a 5 because I don't care about the volume. If your headphones aren't loud enough, then what are you doing? Or if they're too loud, then what are you doing? Watch your hearing. The album's gonna get lower.
Anyway,
the album's gonna get louder.
It was just the consistency it required. Anyway,
angry person.
It's fine. The song's magnificent. All right.
Yeah.
I think it could run exceptionally well. I feel like this song is a direct extension of the previous track.
Fair assumption.
In terms of like lyrics, and now he's just being more like the I think it's his "Wake Up" is one of the first things, like, and then "Run Away with Me." Now it took me a little time to puzzle out what he was trying to get to with this "Runaway" line, and it's I think it's a matter of the norm has gotten so skewed and so awful, and he's recognizing that just the way things are so bad. It's like run away from the way, like, just kind of that the basic accepted expected attitude of normal life, the toxicity of things, and this but it's like he's realized it, and it's almost like this call to like join him, to express his desire. Like he woke up from this dream he was in where everything was so messed up, and I guess he hurt his leg there, and he was sad and having trouble dealing with life. And it was like he just noticed where things actually are these days. And this was, like, again, his emotional explosion of coping with that. And honestly, it is fantastic again. This song comes in, like, kind of calm, and then it just picks up and explodes. And he manages to sing softly, aggressively, screams. He manages to just change so much on it. it's 5 minutes and 23 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that because it just keeps you so enthralled. Like, I think it really starts to show his brilliance as a songwriter, if there was ever any doubt. But like, it just so much passion, diversity, and the way he can almost take these soft sounds and blend them so perfectly with the harsh aggression to both convey the emotional complexity of the situation through almost like this orchestral composition. It is just truly divine.
Yeah. This what's cool about this track. It's really like it's everything that's great that can be great about a Foo Fighters song. It's got the really soft melodic intro. It's got the killer, just nasty riff. Dave screaming his lungs off through the verses. Really catchy hook. Not too much vocal fluff. Really raw delivery. Even though the vocals are very layered, it's still very raw. There aren't too many runs. No pun intended. Like you said, it goes through a wide variety of genres and feels. I got, again, something a little different from what you got. I felt like it was more kind of like grass is always greener on the other side kind of perspective.
Okay.
Where it's like in another life, in another light, in another perfect life, in another perfect light we run.
Right.
Kind of like imagining where they could have been if speaking to, whatever nameless person he's speaking to. But no, I really love the track. I really love the energy. I think there's something in here for everyone. Again, this one gets a 5 from me.
I give it a 4.5. I feel like as much as it's fantastic music, this is where the subjective part gets in. This is not every day, all the time kind of music. This is music where, like, I gotta be in a particular kind of mood for Foo Fighters, and when I'm in that mood, Foo Fighters is the king of this sound. Maybe not the absolute best, but they're fucking right up there with most. But like, I'm not always there, and this song is it's heavy, it's dense, it's like a thick piece of cake. So you got to be in the mood for a thick piece of cake. And in that mood, it's super delicious. And of all the thick cakes in the world, it's a 5. But in, like, the grand scheme of things, subjectively speaking, I'm giving this a 4.5 because it's not perfect, but it's an amazing experience.
We've got another hour of this, and I want cake.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, then there's the video where they're old, which he wanted to kind of show that aging is involved in this, and then they're just getting up to shenanigans, all sorts of shenanigans. I mean,
featuring the nurse from Blink-182's Enema of the State album.
That is true.
For any of you old school '90s pop punk fans, you get that little Easter egg.
I'm gonna bet that the Foo Fighters' average age of their fans is pretty aware of that album. I'm gonna just throw it out there, and we'll see, but.
Fair enough. I wonder if Blink-182 has become like a niche thing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great video if you're into that kind of silly side. I personally am not a huge video person. It didn't do a lot for me, but it showed a lot of effort, and it made it look like Dave Grohl's the kind of guy you just want to hang out with.
Yeah, and it's not just like a typical band is playing their instruments, different camera angles. Like there's a story in the video. There's a little bit of a rebellious attitude. The old people are kind of in the old folks' home, and they're being forced to take their meds and eat whatever bowl is being fed to them, and then they're like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to party. We're going to feel young. It gave me the emotional shakes.
Yeah. It I guess you can say it makes it right.
Justin Timberlake.
Yep, this is the famous mystery pop feature. Ooh, he's going na 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 na, and he goes for a while.
Yeah,
which is honestly, it's totally like you wouldn't. It's like his feature on Where Is the Love. Unless you really knew it was him, you wouldn't know he was there.
Oh, I forgot he was on Where Is the Love.
But know what I mean? Like,
oh my God.
You wouldn't really, because he's not credited. And like, honestly, there was that accidental media hype, as Dave puts it. He was like, I shouldn't have said anything, but I did. Oh, yeah. Wow, let's play with it.
Because that's it. I actually really do like this song, but I almost like the story of how they got drunk together in a parking lot, and Justin Timberlake begged Dave Grohl to be on the album, and Dave Grohl saying, I'm telling you, man, this guy is going places. Like, I love that story almost more than I like the song.
Interestingly enough, there's a bad Genius annotation later in the album where somebody thought he was there, but no, no, no. There is just a whole other guest pop feature we get to introduce later on.
Spoilers.
Foo Fighters, they know what's up.
But yeah, it's a good tune, man.
Honestly, I've come to realize I'm not the biggest fan of those, I'm going to call them constant riff tracks, because that
Okay.
riff is there, and it is what drives the track. It's like the
Yeah.
main force, and it doesn't change a lot. And as much as the idea of Justin Timberlake on this track is good and his backing vocals are excellent, this song is kind of aimless, and I think it's on purpose, because the song seems to be
I'm
like...
on the train to nowhere, baby.
Right, and
Yeah.
he's kind of giving the illusion that people need to take a step back, I think, take a chill pill, look around and be like, are we doing things the right way? Everyone's so charged, everyone's so whatever. Maybe we need to just kind of rethink it all, because I believe this is the make it wrong, make it right. Like, he's almost, or am I, anyway, he's kind of like questions the quest for being right and the consequences of what happens with it, which is something, interestingly, we've seen a lot this year because the climate seems to be calling for it. So I like it. I think it's an interesting song, and the drums and basses and all that is excellent. The vocal
All the
delivery,
bases.
the verse sounds so much to me like one of the Nickelback tracks that we just covered a little bit back. I don't remember which one, and that's not to compare it in a negative way. This is really great verses, man. I really like this track, but I can't get past that guitar. So for me, this is a 4 because it got to me. I really can't unhear it.
Yeah, I mean, Nickelback are great. I really like this track. You're right, it is one of those songs that does rely very heavily on its main riff. And look, 8 times out of 10, I agree with you. It's, a little bit of variation, but I love the groove on this one. I don't know what it is. And the hook makes it different enough. It's enough of a change up. And it's really catchy, man. Dave Grohl can write a chorus like nobody's business. It's the middle part drags just a little bit. I don't remember whether there was cowbell in there or not. I think there might be. It breaks down a little bit, but it's still that same riff, that but it's I mean, I like the riff too. They're not reinventing any wheels. It's nothing special, it's nothing new, but it's fun and it's fluffy, and I think that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be a think too hard song. It's meant to be kind of a dancey track.
But
I mean, it gets a 4.5 for me.
It gets the 4. I mean, its spice is still in. It's still released to this album, and
I think
in terms of placement, it is a nice break from, I guess, the quasi-serious experience that's previous to it, and it does want to play with different emotions, so it kind of almost feels like in its efforts to be what it's supposed to be, it made me not like it as much.
That's fair. I think I'm just going to give everything a 0.5 higher than you.
That's fine.
This album.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, I genuinely thought this was a pretty solid and well-rounded album for the most part. I'm pretty impressed so far.
Yeah, me too. The Sky is a Neighborhood.
Yeah, that one was clever. I don't like this song as much as he does. I think it's a great song. I mean, here's the thing. We're talking about an album where I don't think there's bad on it. So it's like a bad song next to perfection, not bad song. It is well composed. Everything's proper, but I feel like, again, it's one of those weird vibe songs where you gotta be in the right mood to get into that vibe, I find. It's a little aloof in terms of its content. Like, we're all connected through the atoms of the universe, and I got the feeling like he was lying on the grass staring up at the sky. It's part of, like, this is what he said happened, and he just kind of got inspired, and he just, kind of got on this, he was a little out of it and maybe intoxicated, and his imagination ran away with him, and it's aloof. And he has a very great voice for what he's doing. I feel like it's all pretty okay, but it lacks some of the passion, or in my opinion the intensity, or the interesting elements that a lot of this album brings. It feels a little lackluster, and the video is lame. Didn't like the video, and so I guess the aimlessness of this one right after the aimlessness of the last one made me not appreciate it as much too. But I gave it a 4 because as a standalone song it's still pretty good. If it came on, it's not like you're skipping it. It can totally play in a lot of context. It's just there's so many better songs on this album.
I was gonna give it a 5, but you gave it a 4, so I'm giving it a 4.5.
Is that really what we're doing here?
No, I have a reasoning behind it. Hear me out. So we were just listening to it as we do. We listened to a little bit of the song before we start talking to you guys, just to refresh our memories, keep things recent, up to date. And he does yell "the sky is a neighborhood" a few too many times. I'm not a fan of having a hook hammered into me. I prefer to have it be naturally catchy. Having said that, I love the thump on this track. I love the thump. I love the groove. This is very atypical, I guess, not typical.
Yeah.
Of the Foo Fighters. They're usually much more straight rock and roll. This is almost veering on R&B territory. It's very cool. I love Dave's delivery on this vocally. I don't know what he's singing about, but I feel it. I feel it the same way that you can feel it on a track like "Best of You," which is one of their biggest hits.
Because you can understand what the damn song's about, and you can relate to it on top of having that feeling.
But I'm saying I feel this one the same way.
Feel
Thank you
it
very much.
And you're also said thank you very much that you didn't know what it was about. So I'm just.
I don't know what it's about. I'm saying I don't care.
I
don't care.
You don't have to care.
And I don't. But but no, this one gets a 4.5. It's a great song. It's a great single. I like the video too. It's a little simpler than the one for Run, but I don't know, man.
There's some kids below them and they're playing, and it's boring.
I'm a sucker for making people look cool with weird sci-fi effects, and they've all got this like blue light shining in their eyes for the duration of this video, and I don't know why. But it works. This guy's a neighborhood, and there's stars, and their eyes look like stars, and they're all cool looking. And
that ain't impressing me much. Just saying, the video didn't do it for me, but the song is still. Anyway, it's still like, look, all of my criticisms aside, if you're really into this rock sound per se, this style of things, it is really good.
This rock and roll that the kids are listening to.
I don't know. Like, I'm not great with the particular subgenres, and I once said emo on something, and I got like a tangent like that from the comments. So
yeah,
I'll just apologize be vague.
If the guy who ripped on me for not knowing anything about Living Colour last week is watching. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we live, we learn.
We live, we learn. What I was going to say about this track is something that the Foo Fighters do tend to do chord progression wise, is they have these very jazzy chord progressions that are very unique to them in a rock and roll context. Whereas a lot of bands in their genre will rely more heavily on blues pentatonic scales. The Foos tend to break out of that box, not just step out of it. They break out of it. And it what it does, it's a give and take for them, because it means that their songs do tend to sound very similar, but it means that they also sound like them and like no one else. So that's cool, and they do that very well on this track as well. So, la-dee-da.
This is another pleasant experience, brought to you in part by the Foo Fighters. I guess
and
in
part
full.
by Spotify, sponsor us.
Yeah, no, but La-Di-Da is pretty good. It is, the energy goes right up. Their passion, they're like, the aimlessness is over, and it's tight, and it comes in with like, and it's a little off in terms of the math on the rhythm to make it a little like, just a little off sounding while still being perfect.
Oh yeah? Tell me about the math on the rhythm.
I can't. Just I don't care. I don't care. I can just feel it. And it's great, and I like it. And relax yourself. And ultimately, the track seems to be addressing overt hateness and just kind of tackling that subject a bit. And I appreciated it. The energy fits it. There's a lot of screaming and simplicity. There is a bit of repetition, though. I like verses. I do. I like it when there's some, like, distinction, like there's almost like a progression and growth, and I feel like this is a lot more about the emotional explosion, so he tends to wail out the same thing. Almost every lyric in this is sung at least twice, with the exception of the first 4 lines, and it's interloped in ways that make it alive, and the music and the way he delivers the lines changes, and it evolves, and again, like, in 4 minutes he manages to make it sound like a whole bunch of different songs.
Yeah.
But still, I kind of want more effort in the songwriting department, even if the arrangement and everything else is perfect.
I really like the way the drums come in on this track. This album to me is the most rhythmically interesting album the Foo Fighters have ever released. I mean, for a silly example, you go back to a song like The Pretender, which is a great song. It's got the soft intro, and then it kind of has to lead into the second part of the song. Like, da 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 da. The snare drums come in. You know, it's almost like it's two separate songs. And I feel like this album, they've really nailed how to get down different kind of syncopations without having awkward transitions. They did it. I think they did it on Make It Right as well. And this one is really cool. It comes with a really cool rhythm, very very garage rock, very raw. My only complaint about this track is the title. I think that, you know, you were saying the last couple tracks were very fluffy. I feel like this one has a very fluffy title where it doesn't necessarily need it.
I think what it's trying to say is all of the hatred sounds like la-di-da bullshit, nothing.
Fair enough. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
I think in light of the extremeness of the song, it was deliberately chosen to be a stark contrast. Now, whether or not it
stark.
was... Hey, I'm trying to drop flossing my vocabularies a bit, you know?
Flossing.
Anyway, I like the title. I think that, like, I was a little worried about it when I saw it at first, but the more I heard the song, I was like, okay, I get it. Makes sense.
I'm just saying, I'm going to dock points for the title, maybe, depending on what grade you give it.
Well, I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
Darn. I guess I can't dock points for the title. No, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Yeah, no, it's not a 5 because it is, like, it... I don't know that he's trying to write perfect songs. I think he's trying to explode emotionally on these tracks, which is beautiful for what it is, but... And it creates almost, like, the experience is fantastic, but I don't know if they're meant to be, like, stellar, perfect songs. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Well, it's cool because, like, the production on this album is definitely, like, a lot of money went into it.
Yeah.
You can tell, like, it's very clean, it's very crisp, but at the same time, it still feels like a rock album. It doesn't feel like give me like a Mumford & Sons album.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where it's too clear and crisp to be a rock album, even though somehow they get lumped into that genre. This still feels, and especially this song still feels kind of like a balls to the wall.
Yeah.
Mosh ready, just simple riffs, some blues based solos, a lot of screaming. I was gonna say, for some of you, I know some people I've spoken to, a couple of people I've spoken to, were a little disappointed about the lack of screaming from Dave on this album, as compared to previous Foos albums. So this one is for you. Very very aggressive track.
Yeah. And then it follows up with some Dirty Water. Man, this song is amazing. So we're at the middle point of the album from a track list perspective. It needed a soft song. It needed something a little slower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that with a hesitance because it comes in and it gives you almost this transition, and it presents this interesting concept of drinking dirty water, which I kind of took in two directions. One being like media consumption poisoning our minds, and the other being we're killing the planet, so our water is literally dirty, or like something like Flint, Michigan, and or maybe both. So I kind of really enjoyed the tone he took on this album, and the lyrics were diverse. There was like verses and like actual structuring beyond just repeating the chorus a bunch, so we're already doing better than the previous tracks. And then about 3 minutes into the song, it just explodes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking calm melody, just like that. And then the next thing you know, the pit just breaks around you. And if you weren't expecting it, you might be in for some culture shock if you saw this live, because it just goes ham.
And oh my god, I hope they play this live.
It has to. Like, I feel like this entire album would work live.
Yeah, but especially this one, just like middle of the set banger, like.
And honestly, it keeps up with the same everything you heard before, but with like 6 times the energy, 6 times the life. But he sings it almost the same way while still fitting, just because it's like almost like the world is now chaotic and the message remains the same. And again, he manages to carry so much emotional transformation in these songs. It's like they're a movie or a television show playing out, and it's so good.
Yeah.
I flat out gave this a 5. Best song on this album, I think, and I'm blowing out of the water by this. Water.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, you guys know how I feel about long songs again, but this one is another exception to the rule. Very dreamy intro. I feel like this is kind of a more mature version of something like Everlong, from all those years ago. But it's the same kind of dreamy feel, the way it starts off, and then it gets really, really heavy halfway through, but like really heavy, and it doesn't feel out of place.
Right.
It hits you and it takes you by surprise, but it's not unpleasant. Like it's really cool. This one gets a 5.5 from me. There's not. This one gets a 5. There's not too much else I can say about it that you didn't already say.
It's good.
It's a great track.
He should make a great video for this, and it should have rain that's like dirty. You could even get away with using colorful paint or something.
Now, why would you say that? Why would you want some kind of dirty water in the video?
I want nuclear water, and then I secretly want him to turn into the Hulk in the video. Anyway, that was just my imagination running with that for a quick second. I don't have a lot more to add on this. It's the best on the album, and that's the problem with the best ones. You're just like, it's good, go listen to it now. Not right now. Listen to the rest of this, and then go listen to it.
I don't know if I would call it the best. Just from a standpoint of we're only halfway through our review, so now you're telling people to go away.
I know, because it's the best song, but they're still worth talking about other songs.
There's some other really good songs. This is
for
not
sure.
the best song.
It is. It's just there are other good songs.
Spotify sponsor us.
All right, Arrows. Arrows comes next. We're back to super repetitious lyrics. That's my grievance with this track. Throwing it out first because everything else I have to say is cool. But man, come on, with complex subject matter and all this other stuff, why do the lyrics just have to be more or less you repeating the same thing over and over and over again, Mr. Grohl, please? Don't like it that much. But cool song otherwise because it is an interesting concept. It's like this... I picture this girl, at least, who once was super passionate about X, and he leaves it super vague. And then life happens, and then she wants a baby, and now she didn't get her dreams. And you can just almost see that as it goes from, like, this passionate sense of arrows in her eyes and this aggressive rage to the point where it's almost like shame in her cries by the end of it. And, okay, so to some degree, he slowly adds extra emotional layers with additional lines. But man, does he really does say arrows in her eyes a lot on this song.
So ladies don't have babies. I felt like the intro to this track was just kind of an intro to the track because they needed an intro for it because they didn't just want to come in right away with the heavy part.
Right.
Other than that, it's a good song. It's a good song. It's not up there with the rest of the songs that we've heard up until this point.
I like it more than a couple others, dude. I think that from an energy point, it evolves better and it's consistent, and it's really lyrics my beef. I guess it's a 4.5 for real.
I'm glad you have your opinion. Individuality is one of the pillars of Canadian culture and identity. But I don't know. I just felt like this one was a little bit aimless, which is ironic for a song titled Arrows. I mean, it's good. I'm not crapping on it. Like, I'm giving it a 4. It's a good song. It's got a good hook.
I think it had aim. There was some clear coherency to the destruction of this woman's self-esteem over time.
The lyrics are very cool. I wasn't as bothered by the repetition on this one as you were. Lyrically, I just felt like just some of the rhythms that we've heard previously were just so cool, and they've come back to kind of a 4 on the floor kind of snare driven.
Well, they kind of maybe needed a little break in there, some regular stuff, just to give the average listener a chance to breathe amidst the over-encompassing complexity we have come to expect on this concrete and gold experience. Nah, it's a 4.5. It's a really great song.
I can't even see the title of the next track to make a pun right now.
Oh, well, that's too bad because I have notes here. So, Happy Ever After, 0 Hour, mother.
There ain't no superheroes there under...
Wait.
So we have our first song without any real explosions It's more of a
Explosions.
gradual experience, but there is an incline on the curve of energy as it slowly progresses higher and higher as it goes. So that happens. This is like the most depressing song on the freaking album, for real, lyrically at least. He's kind of just describing the hopelessness as we approach 0 hour, and just kind of given the crazy, I was trying to think of how to word this without triggering the ad robots, the crazy global political spectrum of flying things that may impact everybody. I could see how a song may...
Well done, sir. Well done.
A song like this may exist from his mind, especially given the level of social awareness. And it's almost like he's just started paying attention to global politics. And this is his, like, he's just seeing the almost hopelessness of the situation. And this is a result of that. And it didn't need that explosion because he carried it so strongly. He sings excellently, and in this mellowness, he manages to create the same depth as in, let's say, something like La Di Da, which is a lot heavier, but still manages to be as powerful. This song happens to be as powerful as that without that raw in-your-faceness.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't really sound like he's taking sides. So much
you're
as
right
just
about that.
Kind of commenting on the way he sees the world in general. And it's a really kind of happy little ditty. I feel like this is, I mean, they've always had a lot of Beatles influence. I feel like this is the most Beatles-esque track, definitely on this album. Very reminiscent of something like Blackbirds. A little more straightforward in terms of the rhythm, but you know, very very reminiscent of those kind of harmonies. Yeah, super cool, super minimalist. How long is it? Oh, it's actually
3 minutes and 41.
40.
I
Doesn't
think
feel
it's
like
the shortest full song we've had so far.
Yeah. I mean, this one honestly gets a 5 from me. I love these little tracks. I love the way the dichotomy between dichotomy. Am I using that word right?
Yes.
Between the dark lyrics and the really kind of fluffy, happy guitar line. I think that's really cool.
I give this a 4.5. I think it's pretty great. I think it's, again, like this whole album, for the most part, you got to be in a mood for it, and if you're in that mood, it's almost one of the best choices, especially you have in 2017. It's really well composed.
Yeah, and it's the perfect track for like a Sunday rain. There's some old guys drumming on this track.
Very old
from
guy.
Some band that no one's ever heard of or cares about anymore.
It's true.
Paul McCartney!
So, oddly, the most Beatles song on the album isn't the one with the Beatle on it. But I like this song. Another fun fact is it's not sung by Dave. It's sung by Taylor Hawkins.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Hey.
So what happened was, as I read on thegenius.com, was Dave had composed all the music but didn't have words, so Taylor just stepped up and wrote it, and now he's singing. And honestly, it works. If you didn't know it was a different singer, he blends well enough with the way Dave Grohl was singing this album to fit in, but also creates a completely different style in the way he approaches it, so it feels vocally like novel.
Yeah.
Like we're almost in the 90s or something again with this track, and
it's a very 90s track.
And it's amazing in that regard, and the drums are really alive. Like freaking Paul is killing it.
Yeah.
And the song is the longest on the album, clocking in at 6 minutes and 11 seconds, and for real, you don't notice it going by.
Yeah, it merits it.
I did take off a half a point because it does get a little chaotic, and you, as much as you don't notice it, you do realize that it is a long song at a certain point, and so it's 4.5. It's well composed. Lyrically, it kind of approaches the desire to no longer be involved in somebody's pity party and self-destructive attitude. And that was cool, just to have something that was almost more directly about people and less about Dave's kind of aimless emotions. And it felt a little more down to earth and interesting. And again, like, it's amazing. There's nothing bad on this album, really. Like, a 4 is, I think, the lowest grade I've given so far.
Yeah, me too.
And this is nowhere near the lower end of this album. This is a truly, like, great song. I mean, we're track 9. They've managed to make every song sound distinct, unique, alive, and I don't know, man. I'm honestly reconsidering listening to a lot of their older stuff after this album. I mean, just the hits I love and finding out what I miss, because this is freaking awesome.
Yeah, this is a great track. It is a really, really solid track. If you want to see a really cool video of Taylor Hawkins singing, side note, there's a video of I think it's Wembley Stadium. Dave and Taylor switch places. Dave gets on the drums and Taylor gets on the vocals, and they do a cover of Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll. And you know, it's not easy to sing Robert Plant, but Taylor kills it. He kills it. It's a really great performance. The guy can sing like nobody's business. Yeah, this is a really good song, man. It's really cool. It's very ballady, but at the same time very ethereal. It's kind of off-putting. You kind of feel uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's very soothing.
Right.
My only complaint is that drum intro, the drum intro that is used by that Thundercat song, that made him popular for a second after being very prominent on the jazz soul scene for 10 plus years, but and a lot of other songs have used it, and now I can't tell which song it is ever by the intro. So you lose points for that. Sorry, guys. 4.5.
Well, it seems like this line of distinction is pretty thin.
All right, fine.
More politics. There's a line, and there's like a left side and a right side that are both trying to be right while thinking the other is wrong.
I don't understand. Just kidding.
And Dave is talking kind of about how we're reaching that climax point, and we're gonna all have to deal with this situation, which is a more particularly recurring theme throughout this album. We're back to Dave again.
Davey.
And I get it. This is great. In terms of it, it's like more like definitive in terms of what he's talking about. It's a little less opaque and abstract of the aimlessness of his emotions, as though we've gone through this whole quest and he's starting to understand how he feels about the situation and the need for him to like get up and represent some stuff, etc. So I like that, and it feels different. It's under 4 minutes, so it's good to have a kind of short song after a killer long song. That's smart. He sandwiched his 6-minute song between two under 4 minute ones.
Yeah, good move.
And
thank you. We appreciate it.
it's another 4.5 on 5. It's got excellent everything. It's just at this point, it's a lot of. It doesn't have. It's hard for me to come up with new and interesting things to say about the Foo Fighters' experience on Concrete and Gold. This album, it's great. Listen to this song. Listen to this whole album. And I don't know, maybe you can fill in the blanks on this one.
New things to say. I actually have a lot of mixed feelings about this one. It's kind of like it kind of sounds like your favorite cheesy 80s track mixed with like a big anthemic kind of like something by like Fun.
Okay.
Like those two kind of styles were blended together for this. It's a little bit melodramatic. It's a little bit too melodramatic. And it feels like a track 10. It feels like a second to last track. It's something that's a left turn. It's different from everything else that's on the album. It's a little weirder. I'm not vibing on it quite as much. Maybe it's something that'll grow on me. I feel like it could. I feel like this is something that could very potentially be released as a single.
It had the audio single release.
Yeah, so there you go.
Have a video
there you
yet.
go. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. Because it is very different, and it is a left turn, and it's different for the Foo Fighters too, which is cool. So I'm caught somewhere between 4 and 4.5.
Okay.
And again, I do feel like it'll grow on me, so I'm not being fair right now. I listened to it a couple of times, and I'm still the jury's still out. Which is cool for a song to do that, right? By any artist, whether you like them or not, it's cool to still have that mulling around in your head, whether you like it or not, because it forces you to go back and listen to it again,
Right.
And give it that attention. So that's cool. So yeah, somewhere between 4.25.
Okay. So that leaves us with the final track, the title track, the last one.
Concrete and Gold.
That one. This is like if you were to picture a movie. At this point in the timeline, the planet's been destroyed, and the weeds are growing, and the remnants of humanity are standing there with a flag starting again, because when the world is destroyed and everything is done, our spirit is so strong, you can't conquer us. We will come back with the cockroaches and take over stuff, and that's what I took from this song, and the music reflects it. It's this somber, like, it makes you pensive, and you've just gone through all sorts of things, and you could picture the movie scene that this is playing out. Like, in Dave's mind, there was a movie, I'm certain. And it really, it's good. I have another 4.5. It really fits the role as the album closer. It really, I feel like it builds up properly. I'm not the biggest fan of slow songs, but for slow songs, it really keeps it interesting. And in this song, when it repeats itself a whole bunch of times, in light of what it's saying, I'm a little more okay with it. It fits, and it fits the kind of like pensive tone of the rest of the song. I don't got a lot more to say on it, except that it's a particularly excellent album closer and does this album justice.
I really like Taylor Swift's new song, and Holden doesn't, so if you agree with me, you can comment about that.
Look what you made me do, dude.
Going back to the Foo Fighters. Sorry, I had to throw that in there because
that's fine.
People need to know.
Foo Fighters.
This is about as post-rock as you're going to get from the Foo Fighters. Very washy guitars, very overdriven bass, not structured at all. It rises and it falls, and it's very slow, and it's very drony. It's cool. It's cool. It's different. It's very different again. Great closer. I had something else I wanted to say, but Taylor Swift is so good. No, this one actually gets a 5 from me.
Okay.
I'm not always the biggest fan of post rock stuff. It has to be done right, but I think they add the right amount, just the right amount of accessibility to it, and it's a really, really good closer to a really, really good album.
It is a really, really good album. Like, I gave the album a 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, just a bunch of 4.5s repeated. It's really good. The thing is it's consistently great while never really approaching excellent, is how I feel about this album. It is all around 95% amazing.
Interesting.
And I like that because it's freaking awesome. Like, it was such a great, I really focused on it when I was reviewing it, and I was like, when you listen to it casually the first time, you're going to be possibly a little put off by it if you're not sure what to expect. You're not the biggest Foo Fighters fan. But then when you really listen to the nuances and everything else, Dave Grohl can get away with repeating himself a bunch of times, is all I'm trying to say. I recommend this album to anyone who likes rock music in general. It's dope.
Yeah, I think, it's a little preemptive to say, but I think this might go down as one of the Foo's strongest efforts. Whereas in the past they've been, probably not intentionally, but very singles focused.
Right.
And I mean, look, they never miss with their singles. The Pretender, Times Like These, All My Life, Everlong, Monkey Wrench, run the spectrum. You can't find a bad song. Best of You, DOA, all of them are great. But this album really is about great songs as a whole. The entire thing is just full of bangers. There are no misses here. And just personally, I feel like many of their past efforts haven't quite nailed that mark.
Right.
In the same way. So there's a lot of attention to detail. It's very raw, very heavy at times, but not off-puttingly so. Very dreamy at times. The guests are not shoved down your throat.
Oh, before we forget, one of the dudes from Boys to Men was on the last song doing the choir, like, harmonization. They have them layered over like 40 times.
Yeah, cool. Then again, that's what I mean. The guests are not shoved down your throat. They're used with purpose. They're used very deliberately. Justin Timberlake is not there to be Justin Timberlake. He's there to add an aesthetic to the song, where if you're not listening for him, you won't realize it's him, but it does do something cool to it. The same thing with Paul McCartney. If you didn't know that was Paul McCartney drumming, you wouldn't think twice about it, but it is a very cool drum line.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a great album. Just check it out, man. Taylor Swift is awesome. Spotify, sponsor us.
All right, so I guess that's this week. Next week, The Killers is out. Jay is back, and life will be peachy. We appreciate you watching it. Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more fun reviews. Tell us what you care about in the reviews. Tell us if you like Taylor Swift, or more importantly, if you don't feel like Shake It Off Part 2 was kind of a little bit of a strange choice for Miss Swift at this point in her career.
Did you like Shake It Off Part 1?
I did. It's a great song.
Why would you hate the sequel if it's as good?
It's not as good.
Fight me.
Like what you made me do. All right, on that note, have a great week, everyone.
Peace, guys. See you.